Welcome back, JSN Unfiltered fans. If you haven't already, hit that like, hit that subscribe, and also hit that notification bell so you can see when my videos are coming out. Today, I want to talk about the father of sports debate, Skip Bayless, and the beef with Stephen A. Smith. Now, I covered him a few times on my show, and I like to talk about this topic. First, I want to play a clip between both of the two, and it will kind of explain what the beef is, and then I'll give you my 2 cents after that. Check out this video, and I'll talk to you in a minute.
At this point in time is that Stephen A. Smith made some statements on JJ Redick's podcast last week that flat out blindsided me, that stung me to the core, that ultimately made me angry and made my wife Ernestine even angrier. And she knows Stephen A. very well, maybe even better than I do in some ways. But Stephen A. made some statements on JJ Redick's podcast that made several people I worked with at ESPN pre-Stephen A., well, I'm not going to say it made them angry. They were just stunned at how so wrong what Stephen A. said was.
I want to stay on First Take for a second because, we both read this article in the New Yorker just about the changing landscape of how media works across the board. And it's not so much about telling you the news. When I was a kid, I would watch SportsCenter, would come on the first episode at 6 a.m., then they'd rerun it through basically noon, and then strongman competition would come off. And now we're very much a 24/7 discussion debate show. The debate network, the origins of First Take, the origins of this embrace the debate notion. Where did that come from? Where was that sort of driving force behind
As
that?
it pertains to First Take. Yes. What happened was Skip Bayless was doing First Take. And they were doing it based out of New York. It was called Cold Pizza. And they had just a regular conventional sports talk show, and they had incorporated debates for a segment here or there with Skip Bayless and Woody Page. Well, a couple years later, they moved it to Bristol, Connecticut, to the headquarters of ESPN, called it First Take, changed the name from Cold Pizza to First Take. And then one of these days, a guy by the name of Jamie Horowitz was an executive here, and he took over First Take for a short period of time. He did a focus group, and the focus group said, we don't want all that other stuff. We want debate. And so he took First Take from a conventional show and changed it into an all-debate format featuring Skip Bayless. And that's when it really took off. Of course, Pardon the Interruption was already in play, Around the Horn and stuff like that. But as it pertained to First Take, that's where its real origin came from. Skip was doing it with a potpourri of individuals for a few years. I had been gone from ESPN over a contract dispute from May of 2009 to February of 2011.
Stephen A., back when we were both at MSNBC.
Yeah.
And I knew of the legend of Stephen A. Smith.
Right.
But the guy I met at that time, you were in this uncertain space.
Yeah, the ESPN let me go. We had a contract dispute. I obviously thought I was worth more than they thought I was worth at that particular moment in time. And I didn't do enough of my homework. And I felt like I was worthy of more than they were offering me. And so,
But the bottom line, you'd been let go.
I was let go, and I was unemployed.
Right. And that's when I met you.
That's when you met me.
So when he walked into, we all had little cubicles, and Stephen A. walked in. First I thought, is he doing politics now?
Right.
But I have to be honest, and I never shared this with you, I didn't see that legendary swagger.
Right.
And I
It was
thought,
gone.
it was gone.
It was gone. I was humbled beyond belief. I was questioning myself in a lot of different areas because I knew that I came up in sports, and I knew that I knew what I was doing. And to be let go under those circumstances and to not have anybody in the sports world pursue you at all. I didn't have any job opportunity.
Everything's
Stephen A. Smith got let go from ESPN and wound up doing Fox Sports Radio for the next couple of years. And I soon joined a show on ESPN2 called Cold Pizza, while Stephen A. got a shot at doing his own show, quite frankly. And yet, shortly into our stays on our respective shows, Stephen A. eventually was given 3 months to save the ratings of Quite Frankly. He was given the option of firing his showrunner, and he had 3 good months to save Quite Frankly, and it did not work for whatever reason, and that plug got pulled. Yet over those 2 years, it felt like Stephen A. and I talked about once a week. And all I continued to hear from him was, hey, I got to get back to the worldwide leader. And I would say, I'm going to get you back. And trust me, I wound up knocking on every door on the top floor of ESPN's Power Building at the mothership in Bristol, Connecticut, where ESPN had moved Cold Pizza. I was now residing in Connecticut, talking long distance to my brother Stephen A., while talking face to face to those that he called the big bosses at ESPN. And I said, you gotta let him come back. And again I heard, I'm sorry, he's just more trouble than he's worth. And I said, no, you have to understand. He's matured. This has humbled him at least a little bit. He'll be great when he comes back. He's just too talented, I continue to tell the big bosses. He belongs here. You know it, and I know it. And finally, February 1st, 2011, the great Stephen A. Smith was hired back at ESPN, but he was forced to repay some pretty serious dues. He would be relegated at the start to doing local radio shows for ESPN New York and ESPN LA, and to writing columns for what was then ESPN New York, not the big ESPN website, the one that just serviced New York. And this pained me to no end, because I kept saying to my then girlfriend, Ernestine, he's just better than this. This is a low blow that he has to earn his way back up the ladder.
Skip Bayless was doing his thing with First Take, having the 2 live stews, Jamel Hill, Rob Parker, and various other people debating against him. And then in 2012, they weren't satisfied with the numbers. They weren't satisfied with the ratings, the level of revenue that was being generated. Skip Bayless comes to me in the parking lot on the campus of ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. And he says, I know you got your plans. You love the NBA. You love being out on the road. You love being in the locker room. But he said, but I need you. He said, I've done all that I could to take this as far as I could go. I need you to do this for me, please. He said, I just need 3 years. He said, I think we'll knock it out the park. I thought about it. Those were clearly my best options. They weren't about to give me my own show or anything like that at the time. I thought about it for a couple of days. I said, all right, I'll do it. 1 month later, we were number 1. And we've been number 1 ever since. And so when it skyrocketed to that point, it was like, oh shit, I didn't see this coming. You know, I knew we'd be successful, but I didn't know we'd skyrocket to the number 1 morning show. And it happened a month after I arrived, and it's never changed.
As I continued to debate a rotation of challengers for 4 segments only a day, 4 segments only, maybe let's say 40 odd minutes of the 2-hour show, then known as First Take / Cold Pizza. The rest of the show would be sort of casual fan segments, ballpark food, pets, cigars, and of course, any number of interviews. Jamie Horowitz took one look at the ratings data and he said, enough. And Jamie Horowitz had the guts and the vision to risk his career by blowing out all the old Cold Pizza segments and turning First Take into 2 full hours of debate. Would you believe that after the 2011 NFL season, I got nominated for an Emmy? I don't know how it happened, but I did. I still can't believe it to this day, but I did. I got nominated for an Emmy. Villainous me, nominated for an Emmy. And thanks to DJ Steve Porter, he made a music video built around my defending Tim Tebow. We called it All He Does Is Win, off my sort of slogan for the year. Would you believe that DJ Steve's music video won the Webby Award? Did Jamie Horowitz and I finally convince the head honchos, the big bosses as Stephen A. calls them, to let Stephen A. do one 10-minute segment a week, one a week, on Wednesdays on First Take. That was it. That was the quota. You get 10 minutes on Wednesday. So he would join me at the top of the second hour on First Take each Wednesday. A month after he joined me, that we skyrocketed to number one, where First Take remains. What? As Stephen A. well knows, the only competition that First Take had at that point was SportsCenter. There was no Undisputed. There was no Fox Sports 1. There was no competition to be found anywhere. We were competing with SportsCenter. We had already crushed SportsCenter. So how do you suddenly vault to number one? We had already done that. And in the end, I had hoped Stephen A. would join me, but you got to trust me on this also. As much as I missed him and loved working with him, if he had said, no, I just don't want to get up that early to do First Take, I'll stick with my gigs, I wouldn't have lost any sleep. I would have been just fine.
Had you played the game wrong?
Totally. You know, I was very confident, but more importantly, I was uninformed about my own worth. You know, I didn't study the business and master my art the way that I needed to in terms of understanding what your true value is. I looked at the fact that people were screaming my name in public and I was recognizable and thought that that was all that I needed. But I didn't pay attention to ratings, Q scores, and things of that nature, things that the business of sports journalism uses to gauge your value, what you mean to the company that you represent, what kind of revenue you generate, and things of that nature.
Well, I'm riding with Skip Bayless on this. Skip Bayless is completely correct, and he should tell his story. See, if we just heard what Stephen A. Smith said, then we'll think that's true, but you gotta go in between the details, because people lie. See, I always like to say the person who wins the war get to tell the story. So Skip Bayless came back, and he had the right to be upset, because there was people behind the scenes, which he addressed in that interview, in his podcast, that blew him up. Skip Bayless would not be anybody without Jamie, I forgot the dude's last name, but he's the one that decided to look at the numbers and say, this part of the segment is the reason why people are watching the debates. It was right around election time too. It was a very smart strategic move. Also, Tim Tebow came out and he was a Christian, and all the Christians was watching him, and they was putting on, paint, and they were finally looking at Bible verses he would write on his shoes and stuff like that. So he had a movement. Even though he wasn't good enough, God had his back, in my opinion, definitely. And it was a Tim Tebow mania that blew up a lot of channels, but it particularly got Skip Bayless on the map, because really nobody knew him before that unless he was talking about LeBron. Nobody really wasn't paying attention to him. But he was right. He put Stephen A. Smith on. He created you and gave you another career, because your career was done, as we saw in these videos. No one will hire you because of who you thought you were. Who you thought you were was not who they thought you were. You were like what you would say Monique is doing right now. Nobody wanted to work with you. You thought you was a big deal. You couldn't get hired. So Skip Bayless put his career on the line to get you back. And that's what happened. Right now, your numbers went down without Skip Bayless. So you could not create that chemistry that you had. That's why you want him back. Because you know if you got him back, the ratings would go through the roof. But when you had Max Kettleman, when you had these other people, you cannot do it. Now, right now, you got Mad Dog. I don't think your numbers are that high right now. But you could not replace him. So, shame on Stephen A. Smith for not acknowledging the fact that, you know, he helped you. Everybody wants credit for helping somebody. They put their career on the line, put their life on the line. They want the credit. You should have just gave him the credit instead of trying to say, I'm the deal. I came over here and changed it. Well, clearly, I watch all your interviews and you lied. You know, one interview you said I couldn't get hired. So Skip Bayless is correct. Skip Bayless said he wasn't working. And when he was begging for his job back in ESPN, they gave you the crappy jobs. And Skip Bayless did not have to pick you. If Skip Bayless did not pick him and put his career on the line to get you on this show, who knows what you would be doing. So that's my thoughts on it. Shannon Sharpe is doing a fantastic job with Skip Bayless. And Skip Bayless, he is the face of debates when it comes to sports, but sometimes you just gotta trust God. Like, God put that out there, man. You know, who can explain that this was going to work? But he was definitely the father of sports debate, and he wanted to put the story out there. What do you guys think about these videos? What do you think about the beef between Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith? Obviously, they say they're friends, but it is what it is. Well, I'll see you on the next video.
I know that I just met you, but you look, oh girl, you blow my mind. I know what I would like to do, but you just keep on talking. I see your dog needs walking. Your folk drive you insane. I know, yeah, that's true. Of course, you ain't the one to blame. Keep on talking to me.